welcome back as we continue to talk about artificial intelligence conference that is underway in Windhoek at Safari Hotel. We now dig deeper on how Africa can harness the power of artificial intelligence in building the national capacities in Africa. Now, joining us to give us an insight is Dr. Gabriela Ramos, Assistant Director General for Social and Human Sciences at UNESCO. Good morning, Doctor, and welcome to Good Morning Namibia.
Good morning, Namibia. It's great to be with you, Lot, and with all the participants in this conference that you mentioned.
Okay. How is the weather this morning in Paris?
Cold. I wish I was with you, but I got COVID and then I couldn't travel.
Okay. That's unfortunate. We definitely hope that you recover very soon. Now, talking about this conference that is taking place or that is currently underway in Namibia, and we're talking about the ministerial panel that will feature on UN, on the UNESCO's global instrument to support member states to implement the 2021 recommendation on ethics. In a layman's term, can you simply just tell us what is ethics in terms of artificial intelligence?
Well, it's no different than what is ethics for every single decision that we take. It's really to align the technological progress with the most higher goals and values of humankind. It's about respecting human rights and human dignity. It's about ensuring that the outcomes of the technological revolution are fair and that are sustainable. And the fact is that when we talk about, for example, freedom of not being bothered with all this targeting and micro-targeting that happen in the web, freedom of expressing your own cultural views, freedom of respecting your privacy, not being discriminated because artificial intelligence is being used to take decisions in the public and private sector without the transparency that is necessary. And therefore, the ethical framework is just to ensure that we are protected, that we take advantage of these fantastic technologies, but that we control the downside risks that are many as we know them.
Okay. Now, Doctor, as you rightfully mentioned, that obviously we want to ensure that issues such as the use of data, safety and transparency, these things are addressed. So what are the possible consequences if these issues are not addressed, especially by those entities or companies that are at the forefront of artificial intelligence?
Well, it's already happening. The kind of rules that we have in the analog world are not completely translated in a way that is effective in the digital world. First, because of course these technologies are highly concentrated in few countries and few companies that are the ones that are able to harness and leverage the data. But on the other hand, also because the privacy rules, the consent rules are really at the inset and we need to reinforce them. The fact is that is already happening. Data, the recommendation of UNESCO is very strong in saying should be owned by those that produce. We as consumers, we as users should be the ones who decide what do we do with our data, which is not the case when big companies are using it for their commercial purposes. But I have to say that it's also done by non-democratic countries using the information of their citizens in a way to be exerting mass surveillance or social scoring. And therefore, I think it's really important that we take conscious of the importance first as an individuals when we engage with the internet and leave our information there and give consent because it's very weak the way we said yes or not, we want cookies, we don't want cookies, and we don't know then what happened with our information. But it is also very important that governments develop the rules, the institutions, the capacities to protect people. Many times in the internet, we got people getting into our house, sitting in our sofa and taking pictures, and nobody is really there to stop this from happening. Okay. Then the question of the algorithms, how do they are built, in which data, with criteria, is it free of stereotyping, is it free of discrimination? And we know that that's not the case. We know that facial recognition technologies have more difficulties to recognize Black people or women, and there is always these discriminatory traces. So it's really important that we ensure that privacy is respected and that the whole process is more transparent in the way it is built. And this is what UNESCO is pushing, and this is also something that is very strong in the forum that Namibia is hosting, the regional, that is really very powerful in this domain.
No, it's good, Doctor, that you talked about the issues, for example, this issue of accepting cookies when a website wants to interact or collect specific information. And many of us are not likely, obviously, to read in too much into these details. But staying with that, let's talk about the fact that, the concern that of many people who are worried about the issue of privacy as technology is advancing. What are some of the areas, I think, or maybe notions that you can share about building trust in artificial intelligence? How can we build trust and maybe to see that we can coexist?
Well, this is exactly what the recommendation of UNESCO is all about. But let me tell you that this was approved by 193 countries in the General Conference in November. So it's a first global standard that is really looking at how to fix these things. I have to share with you that the chair of the Intergovernmental Council for the Ethics Committees, that is really at the incept of this work, is chaired by Inmo Ogbeglu, who is a very well-known Namibian woman. And actually, the chair of those that developed the recommendation is a South African woman. So I can say that the recommendation is African. But the fact is that it's very straightforward. First, we define the values, which I said, which is it needs to be aligned with human rights and human dignity. And you know what is the framework of human rights, no doubt about it. But we also are operationalizing principles that have been developed in many ways, but are not really into the regulations and the institutions that the countries need to develop. The principle of transparency, the principle of explainability of the algorithms and on the processes in which decisions are taken, the principle of accountability. This is super important because we need the rule of law. If something goes wrong in the internet, if you get hacked or if you get harmed, somebody needs to be accountable. And the rules that are now there in the cyberspace are not yet developed in a way that we can have confidence that this is happening. We need to be conscious of how the stereotyping, the discriminatory traces, the misuse of these technologies can harm us. There are examples, for example, in the Netherlands, which it was not intentional, because many times these issues are not intentional, develop an algorithm that discriminated against migrants when looking at who was receiving the benefits of the welfare state. And the same happened in many other instances, recruitment tools that then discriminate against certain kinds of people, against women. And therefore, all this legal, regulatory, institutional infrastructure needs to be adapted for the digital world. We need to know who is accountable. We need to know how do we develop transparency. And the recommendation, for example, says, okay, you are the owner of the code. You are the one that developed the algorithm. It's not that we are going to just snatch the innovation and forget about the intellectual property rights. But if there is harm, you should reveal it. As we do, for example, whenever you have tax issues, you never go with the owners of the bank accounts to tell them, give me your information because I want to have it. No, but if there is a problem, if there is suspicion, you need to deliver this information to the authorities. And this is the redressal mechanisms that we're trying to develop to deliver a safer world, and where people and companies and governments feel more comfortable and have more trust that these technologies will not harm them and will not then turn against their own rights.
Okay. Now, indeed, very commendable that Doctor indicating that obviously, besides adopting these recommendations, states have the duty to ensure that their citizens are also protected. But maybe in an overview, Doctor, we know that what we do in terms of anything else that we do in life, there are usually pros and cons. What are some of the pros and cons that you can highlight, especially when it comes to this artificial intelligence in terms of ethics?
Well, the fact is that there is this narrative, dear Lot, that regulations are going to stifle innovation. It has been like that. You have seen it. The big tech is always saying, no, I know better how to regulate. Oh my God, this is a very dynamic sector. Don't mess around it, because if you regulate it, you're going to really break it. And well, I don't think that's the case. I think that you will not leave the pharma, you will not beat the automobile, you will not need any sector of the economy that has such an impact in our people to be self-regulated. There is a role for the governments. Of course, we need to be careful because we don't want to stifle innovation. But at the same time, I feel that we are right in the moment where hate speech is rampant, when our democracies are being targeted, when we know that there are discriminatory traces for people, and that the global South and Africa, Latin America, and Mexican are not as well represented as they should in these developments. I feel that it's important that we move away from that dichotomy does not exist, because we feel that as soon as you build these ethical guardrails and you ensure that the outcomes are fair, are inclusive, are really in line with our goals as humankind, then the reality is that there will be more investment, there will be more innovation. We are sure of that. It had happened in many other instances.
Okay. Now, Doctor, unfortunately, we're running out of time, but before we conclude our conversation, there will be a side event that is taking place in the afternoon that will be based on the readiness and ethical impact assessment. Perhaps maybe just share with us and our viewers an insight on what that translates.
We are very proud, because it's not only the fact that with Namibia we have really, UNESCO has really brought all of their forces to partner with the countries in the region to advance the capacities and the competencies to deal with artificial intelligence, including the ethical stance. But we're also very proud because we choose this venue to unveil internationally the readiness assessment. That is a tool that the recommendation asks UNESCO to develop in terms to ensure that we know where countries stand in their pathway to really take advantage of the technologies in the way that we have described, and the ethical impact assessment that is also going to be a tool that everybody can use, because it's about the life cycle. No, when you are a company, you start asking a question. I want to know how to tackle this community of this issue from the very incept of how you develop your questions, then what quality your data has, how comprehensive it is, are you discriminating against certain groups that are not represented, then how you build the algorithms, make sure that the teams that are developing them are diverse, inclusive, and capture the richness and the cultural richness of the world. And so these two tools are going to be delivered here in Africa. We are going to get the African perspective, and then we're going to test this in some other places around the world. Japan is helping us with this. The European Commission is considering helping us. So we're really proud to be in Africa and delivering these such important topics. And we are grateful to the President and to all the teams that have made this possible.
Okay. Doctor, before we let you go, any final remarks?
Well, my only final regret is that I'm not there with you, because I was really excited to be able to engage with you. But at the end, the outcome is the most important. We are going to have results that are going to be delivered for the SADC region, and we're going to develop mechanisms that will help us not only with the recommendation, but the work going forward to ensure that Africa is center stage in the developments of these technologies, and is not only a witness, but somebody that shapes the journey of how we develop them.
Well, Doctor, thank you very much for making time to join us this morning, and we definitely wish you a speedy recovery, and we look forward to hosting you next time to Namibia.
Thank you so much, Claude, and good morning, Namibia.
Okay. Now, that was Dr. Gabriela Ramos, the Assistant Director General for Social and Human Sciences at UNESCO, talking to us about the ethics in artificial intelligence and also about the Artificial Intelligence Conference that is currently underway in Windhoek at the Safari Conference and Hotel Center.